The only real difference between him and Basil is that he was small and had a very large henpecking wife. In 1975, John Cleese created a character so outrageous BBC executives worried it would end his career. The hotel owner, who hit his staff, who goose-stepped around Germans, who used words that made actors cry during filming. But the darkest part wasn't what viewers saw. It was what happened when the cameras stopped rolling. One actor ended up in the hospital. Another fled to become a therapist. And 45 years later, streaming services pulled the episode that finally went too far. The reason will shock you. In May 1970, the Monty Python team checked into the Glen Eagles Hotel in Toku, expecting a quiet 3-week stay. Instead, they walked straight into a real-life horror show run by a man named Donald Sinclair. He was a former Navy officer who'd survived 2 shipwrecks during WPU, but couldn't handle guests ordering tea. John Cleese later called him the rudest man I've ever met. And that wasn't an exaggeration. Sinclair's bizarre behavior began almost immediately when Eric Idle left his briefcase in the lobby. Sinclair grew suspicious. It had a ticking alarm clock inside, and he assumed it was a bomb. So, he did what no sane hotelier would. He grabbed the case and hurled it out the window. Some even claimed he threw it off a cliff, though his widow later tried to deny that with, "There are no cliffs near the hotel." When asked why anyone would bomb a hotel in sleepy Devon, Sinclair replied, "We've had a lot of staff problems." That one sentence said it all. The entire Monty Python group was so shaken that they packed up and left. Except for Cleese. He stayed, not because he enjoyed it, but because he couldn't look away. Something about Sinclair fascinated him. This man who insulted guests, policed dining habits, and refused to open the bar at lunchtime somehow felt like comedy gold. Cleese brought his wife, Connie Booth, back to the hotel and studied Sinclair like a human science project. He watched him micromanage teapots, refused to let guests drink by the pool, and patrol the dining room like a prison warden. One waitress remembered him stopping guests mid-meal to correct their table manners. Sinclair hated Americans, too. Terry Gilliam, the only American Python, was publicly corrected at dinner for using his fork the wrong way. Sinclair actually picked up his knife and said, "Sorry, we don't eat like that here," as if British table manners were national security. That one man's insanity became the foundation for Basil Fawlty. But Cleese didn't just copy Sinclair. He added something darker himself. While the show made people laugh, the truth behind it was a lot more unsettling. Connie Booth later said that the character of Basil wasn't just based on Sinclair. It also reflected Cleese's own personality flaws. She described writing the series as a kind of therapy, and that explains a lot, especially when you look at how Manuel, the Spanish waiter, was treated. Andrew Saxes, who played him, had fled Nazi Germany as a child. In the show, he played the clueless immigrant, constantly abused by Basil. But behind the scenes, it wasn't all acting. Cleese actually hit him during filming. Saxes once said, "He hit me so hard I fell over and couldn't get up." He was burned by chemical smoke effects, struck with a metal saucepan instead of a rubber one. And when he asked for an apology, Cleese told him to pull yourself together and offered him a drink. Instead, Cleese's explosive behavior wasn't new. During his Monty Python years, tensions got so bad that Terry Jones once threw a typewriter at him. On Fawlty Towers, that same need for control drove everything. He made all the casting decisions, overruled producers, and ran the set like Basil ran the hotel. The irony was brutal. He had become the character he invented. The tension was even worse for Connie Booth. While filming the first season in 1975, she and Cleese were still married. By the second season in 1979, they were divorced, but no one on set knew. They acted like everything was fine. Booth later quit acting and became a psychotherapist, saying the show had been a way to deal with Cleese's flaws. She channeled her anger and heartbreak into Polly, the calm voice of reason. Among the chaos, that character became her outlet. And then there was Pernilla Scales, who played Sybil Fawlty. Cleese created her to represent the kind of overbearing wife he feared becoming trapped with. In one episode, Sybil's medical records list her age as 34, but Scales was 43 when they filmed it. She once joked that Sybil only married Basil because his family was higher up the social ladder than hers. The whole character was a jab at class insecurity, and maybe at Cleese's own crumbling marriage. The show's darkest casting decision, though, was Ballard Berkeley. As Major Gowan, Cleese wanted someone who could deliver racist lines without flinching. Berkeley was born in 1904 and had the right look for an old colonial fossil. In one infamous scene, the Major uses racial slurs to describe cricket teams. Even in 1975, that was pushing it. When Fawlty Towers first aired on September 19, 1975, it didn't set the world on fire. Not even close. The debut on BBC Two pulled in a small crowd, mostly people curious to see what John Cleese would do after Monty Python. But the critics weren't impressed. They didn't get it. The wild, chaotic energy of Python had been replaced by a sitcom set in a tiny hotel. Some thought it was boring. Others thought it was doomed. Even inside the BBC, memos were going around, questioning whether the whole thing would work. But underneath that early confusion, something was changing. Cleese and co-writer Connie Booth weren't just writing another sitcom. They were doing something entirely new. Faster dialogue, tighter editing, deeper characters. It wasn't immediately obvious, but once audiences began to catch on, the reaction was electric. This wasn't like anything they'd seen before, and they couldn't get enough of it. The magic of Fawlty Towers wasn't just in what aired. It was in what didn't. Only 12 episodes were ever made. Just 2 seasons, that was it. But those 12 episodes took 43 weeks of work per season. Every joke, every argument, every chaotic scene was planned down to the last second. Cleese obsessed over everything, even tiny things like whether both Basil and Manuel should have mustaches became hours-long debates. 2 mustaches in one frame is too much, he argued. But the perfectionism wasn't just about comedy. There was something darker underneath. Cleese and Booth were married when they started the show. By the second season, they were heading for divorce. That gap between the first season in 1975 and the second in 1979, it wasn't just about writing, it was about surviving the process. The show was killing their relationship. In 1978, they officially split. Finishing the final season took everything they had left. Despite the chaos behind the scenes, the show started racking up awards.